So, Jeremy, welcome to the Dallas Film Podcast presented by Southside Studios Dallas. My name's Tony Armour. I am the former film commissioner for Dallas, Texas, now head of production for Talent Entertainment Finance and Southside Studios in Dallas. And we're excited to have Jeremy Inman on the podcast today. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. This is awesome.
Yeah, and so this is literally just going to be, we sort of started already chit-chatting before technically the beginning of the episode, but this is going to be just like that. It's literally you and I are having a first date. We're just going to chit-chat here and see, see how it goes, see if we want to do this another time.
That's right. Just go slow, okay? I'm fragile.
That's right. Okay, all right, yeah. So we didn't meet on Tinder or one of the other many dating apps, so, And actually, in a completely unrelated side note, I've actually never been on a dating app before to try and meet anyone. I've had a long-term girlfriend, so I've not had to
Good
do
for
that.
you. Yes,
Yeah.
it's not awesome. I'll just leave it there. It's not the best. It's not awesome.
That is exactly what I hear from any friend of mine that has ever been on one previously.
Yeah. And
Well,
it's
we're
not
not
like
here.
the hellscape. It's just the ratio. It's your odds are against you no matter what. It's crazy.
No. Yeah, that's exactly what I've heard many times, and apparently you can get many offers to buy cryptocurrency and and other assorted less savory things on dating apps as well, because apparently men are targeted as easy pickings for those kinds of things.
Oh, don't even get me started. We can make this about dating apps if you want. Like way back when in my singular days when I was on one, my favorite was the one word message like, hey, okay, hello, how are you? Nice to meet you. Ghost. And it's like, I'm like, what? I don't know. I would never understand the single word reach out and then total ghosting. That's one of the reasons why I got off of all of them in the first place. It's like, this doesn't make any sense. Is this how people communicate now? Because I don't know how to do it.
You were
So,
probably 100 messages down in their queue, and that's all they had time. All I had time for was like one quick, hey, 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 hey. It was like copy
yeah.
paste.
Hey,
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 hey, hey,
hey,
hey,
hey.
hey, hey.
Who clicks? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. That's probably right.
First one to respond gets
Yeah.
gets a second response. All right. Well, that's not why we're here today.
No, it's not.
If any of our audience would like a dating episode, we're more than happy to do a dating episode at some point.
You do voice actor bachelor, right?
That's right. Send an email to Austin at info@dallascreates.org, and if you want the dating episode, and we'll go from there. Yeah. Well, Jeremy, I guess we should introduce you to our audience. Why don't you give us a little brief bio on yourself?
I'd be glad to. The bio I sent in was awful.
That's why
My
we want
name
to hear.
is,
That's why we want to hear directly from you.
I'll try to keep it short and sweet. My name is Jeremy Inman. I am a full-time ADR voice director and voice actor for Crunchyroll, and I also worked in film and TV as a director and as a first AD, somewhat as a script supervisor a little bit. I moved here from California in the early 90s, thinking I'd never act again. Came to Texas, said, what else do I want to do besides actor? Because that doesn't happen here. So I said, I always wanted to be a fireman. So I did a little theater while I was studying how to be a fireman. I promised I'd keep this short, didn't I?
Well,
Became a fireman. Okay,
Yeah.
I became my goal achieved. I became a full-time firefighter paramedic, and I was Jeremy in the badass. And then almost exactly as soon as that happened for me, I ran into a friend of mine I had met while doing casual theater around town. And I didn't barely knew this guy, and he said, "Hey," I was like, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I just did this job for anime Japan." Like they didn't even know what to call it back then. It was like, "Is it Japanimation?" It sounded awful. And I'm
Animation.
like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm all, "That sounds cool. How'd you get into that?" Like everyone asks. And he said, "Well, they need people really bad. So here, call Chris Sabat." And he gave me Chris Sabat's number, and I called Chris, and he said, "Why don't you come in and audition?" And I said, "That'd be awesome." And I did. And about a month later, he offered me a part on Dragon Ball Z. And flash forward to now, that has become my life.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
well.
It went
That's a crazy start.
It really is. And I could tie it all together. It's really special to me in a way. I just want to emphasize how lucky I am. I didn't come looking for this at all. Um, I was a fireman and I got hired in as a voice actor. And then that led to them asking me to come in and direct as a contractor. And then it all tied in where I hurt my back on the job as a fireman and they wanted me to come in and direct more. And then that, long story short, I ended up coming in to direct full time for Funimation. And then I got a show called Fire Force playing Captain Obi, who is a fire captain. And my life pretty much went full circle.
I was gonna say that's a full circle over there. Well, how long were you doing sort of the dual roles of fireman and voice acting and everything?
Years, I would say about, I ended up leaving around 2003, at least 5 years, I'd
Okay,
say.
that's interesting.
5 or 6 years sounds right. Feels like a million years ago now, but
Yeah.
it sounds right.
And,
Yeah.
was it one of those scenarios where like you were like 3 days on, 4 days off? Like
Yeah.
how did it work? And so that you had those days off in your schedule that then was like, well, I'm not firemanning right now, so I can
Right.
go, do whatever else.
It was crazy at the time. You're right. We worked 24 on, 48 off. So I had plenty of off days to come do the voice acting thing. What complicated it was is when Dragon Ball Z's more voice acting hit when I was in paramedic school, and that was a different schedule. That was I couldn't even describe to you the schedule. It was like kind of 24 on, 48 off, but limited because you had to go to school certain nights. So they had a real creative way of breaking up to get your hours in. But yeah, so but basically all through those, I was either voice acting is very fluid schedule wise. They can bring you in whenever. So it was never really a complication
Yeah.
back then.
Well, because back then you had to go in studio to record, but now, a lot of people have their own home studio setups where you just record from home.
They do. We don't do that too much anymore. Like we did that for COVID because you had to. When COVID hit, everyone was like, "How does this happen?" And Funimation somehow made it happen. A lot of people, like a core list of people, got equipment setups, or if you had your own home setup and stuff like that. And it was just kind of what you had to do. I recorded many, many, many hours in my hot closet. It was awful. It was awful in the hot closet recording Captain Obi and Fire Force. How appropriate. But yeah, we but when we got our new building and then the building opened back up, we kind of were slowly but steadily went back to in studio recording just because it's when you have so many shows, you have a lot of different audio setups coming in and it just gets really hard to mix and make standard. So the best thing to do is try to get as much in-house as possible on your own equipment. So it doesn't take, I mean, we only have so many mixers. We only have so many.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes
Um,
sense. Yeah, that makes
yeah,
perfect sense. Well, you said you came to Dallas in did you say the 90s? So you're in Dallas in the 90s. What is it about Dallas? Like, why are they doing the, English language, American English voiceover of Dragon Ball Z in Dallas? Like, how does that happen? If this is a Japanese,
I
this is
know. I'd
anime,
love to
this,
know.
like,
Like
why and how?
my understanding of it is way back when it was really just costs. It was cheaper to produce here. Um, I'm on the Wayback Machine. Like when the owners created Funimation originally, it was a group of like 3 or 4 guys, and I don't know what their actual intentions or motives were, but I know a lot of it was just cheaper to do it here. And then they brought in Chris Sabat, who kind of led the charge as far as getting the dubbing, casting, and the dubbing work together. Um, I can tell you that when it was brought here, there were certain standards they wanted. Like dubbing has always been a punchline.
Hmm.
Like, look how bad that kung fu dub is, or
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah, yeah,
So one of the tenets when Funimation was first created back then was we don't want that to happen. We want the flaps to fit. We want the English adapted to make sense, and we want it to be a seamless audience experience if you're going to watch the sub or the dub, and we want it to be as good as the sub. So,
yeah,
and we
and for animation, it's a little different from when we used to watch the 1970s kung fu.
Hmm.
movies where it was blatantly obvious, and
Yeah.
comedians would make fun of it and do their whole thing.
Yeah.
Animation, as someone who's not worked in animation and in ADR for animation, I would think that it's a little easier, but maybe I'm wrong.
It's not. That's the
Yeah.
biggest myth. I'm glad you brought that up, actually. I was thinking about talking about this on this thing only because as far as it's the biggest myth
Hmm.
people apply to our industry, and it causes problems in the sense that it allows people to think anybody can do it. And they think they should. But
Right.
and then they
Right.
and then they get in front of the microphone and they realize like this is not what. And I can explain to you why it's different yet the same if you want. I don't want to take up all your
No,
time or
absolutely.
anything.
No, that's
Um,
why we're here. This is
okay,
like I love this kind of stuff, and I think our audience probably wants to hear too. I'm totally curious.
I had to learn. We all had to learn this by fire. Like there's no school for this. That's why I'm kind of really proud of stumbling into this industry, not knowing anything about it, and then learning on the job and having a front row seat to its growth and uh, movement into the mainstream, like kind of where we are now, actually. But as far as the dubbing process and voice acting are applied, um, I say this all the time to voice uh, potential voice actors or actors that want to be voice actors. Like, how do you get into voice acting? As a director, it's my job to hire voice actors every day. I hire actors all the time. And what I need when I hire an actor is for them to be an actor. I don't need to hear their best Cartman voice, and I
Right.
don't need to hear how well they do Stewie or anything like that. I need you, Tony. I need you to be able to deliver a line believably with your voice, just Tony's voice. And then my job as a director, if you're good at it, is to find a home for that voice where it looks visually matching. Now, why it's as complicated or more complicated than film or theater or even standard commercial VO or even video game VO, voice act dubbing lives in its own world in that, like what I said, I need an actor to be able to come in and bring those skills to the microphone. On top of the fact, there's your just normal VO. But on top of the fact is that you are watching something already animated for you, and it's your job to interpret that within the boundaries of what you're given. So it's not like I can be shown a picture of a really cool looking monster and I can do whatever I can say whatever I want, however I want. When let's say the line is, "Hey, why did you eat my steak last night?" And you have 5 flaps to say that line.
Right.
So,
Right. And so when you say flap, that is the literal
yeah, the
flapping,
mouth movement. Sorry. Yeah.
the mouth
Yeah.
going blah 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 blah, whatever kind
Right.
of thing. No, it's good. That's I mean that's what I assumed, but wanted to clarify for anybody that's listening.
Yes, that's exactly what I mean. And in order to make that and that's where the writing team comes in. And when I get my script, that line has already been adapted from
Hmm.
translation to make that line be contextually right, correct, and just believable. And then the actor's job is to say it, and it's my job to get the actor to get it home enough to where not only we believe it, but it sounds right. And my job as well is all the actors come in one at a time. Like Tony's coming in to read for a part. Well, that's all that Tony that is going to see or hear. It's
Hmm.
my job as kind of the conductor of the episode to Tony recorded this part as like lazy guy at the store. Now I need the store owner to kick Tony out of the store in said situation. So I'm going to hire some other dude to come in and play that guy. And I have to get his lines into your lines in a conversational tone and true to his character as well. So
Yeah, no,
all the same,
that's hard.
yeah,
That's
that's what I mean. It's like all the same components are happening when it comes to film or theater or when you're creating a media product. It's just very separated, but all the skills are required to put them all together, if that
Yeah,
makes any
no,
sense.
and I think that's difficult from an acting perspective as well.
It
But
is.
I am by no means like gonna say I'm a great actor or anything like that. That's how I started in the industry, was that whole thing. Like many of us, we start, I want to be an
Same.
actor, and
Same.
then
I
and
started
then
as
you
an actor and found directing just intrinsically. I just found that I was better at it. I think I'm a better director than actor. It just that's how to me that's how the business works. It's like you start doing Tony as an actor, and then all of a sudden they ask you to be a script supervisor, and you really shine to it. You really embrace it.
yeah, and to have to act against nothing, you know,
Nothing. That's the
and
thing.
and you
Nothing.
you're not getting any feedback. You're not responding to what the other actor's saying, and you're just
Yes.
kind of doing it. That's a very tough thing to do, and it's just your voice.
Uh,
So
yep.
I don't you can't make an eye movement or do something weird
No,
with your
it doesn't
face to
matter
do.
what you're doing here.
Yeah, yeah. It's got
No.
to be, people have to be able to hear what you're trying
Hmm.
to say. That's really hard. I mean,
Yeah.
I know we're telling people it's really hard, and I don't know if people quite understand, but that's tough to do.
And there's little tips and tricks. Like I give brand new people what I call the 3 minute acting voice acting crash course for dubbing. And there's just little tips that can get a good actor home as far as where we need the performance to be. A lot of inexperienced, like really great actors, but haven't done the VO thing before. We get a lot of reacts. There's a certain type of reacts in the work we do, where like open mouth gasp or clenched teeth grunt or
Yeah.
whatever, and it'll say in the script like CT grunt or whatever. And what we need for the show is just a really small or like that. And it communicates confused. Like anime does things different with reacts. They actually communicate things sometimes with just a breath or whatever. But it's always funny to watch the theater actor come in and see open mouth, huh? We watch the preview as far as the process. We always watch the scene before we record it in English. And I always get, huh? Like, got you. No, it's the
All right, Othello, bring it back a little bit
yeah,
here.
exactly. Exactly. The biggest tip for that, if you viewers want a voice acting tip, is pretend like somebody's sticking their finger in your mouth. Like take a breath, and then some idiot comes on and goes, oh, like that. And then, and what that's doing is you're just adding a percussive beat in the middle of your breath. So instead of, huh, it's, or
Interesting. All
that.
right.
And that's the react we need because it's real subtle. It gets everything out of the way, and it's not a, huh, it just immediately breaks the scene.
Yeah, because I feel like as a kid watching certain animation as a kid, like you kind of have this. I kind of have this flashback to growing up in the '80s, right?
Same.
And watching certain things where it was like, oh, like
Yeah.
it was that really over the
Oh, yeah.
top thing that's been dialed
There is
back.
that in there. I
Yeah.
guess I should have clarified. There is a lot of that in there too, which is
Okay.
also its own animal. Like
Yeah.
I learned that. That's what I had to learn when I first started. Never doing. I didn't grow up going, I want to be an anime voice actor. Those words never crossed my mind ever. I was either I want to be an actor or fireman. That's it. And I come here and just get given this role to where I had no idea how it works. I didn't know what anime was. Like I watched
Yeah.
Voltron in the
Yeah. Of
80s growing
course.
up,
Like, yeah.
or
Like what kid didn't
Robotech.
love Voltron in the '80s?
Exactly. And
Absolutely.
that was anime. I was in anime and didn't know it, I guess,
Yeah.
because those are
Yeah.
animes technically. Um, but I remember recording my first few sessions, and that was pre-digital. Like we weren't on Pro Tools, we were on Beta tape. And I'm sure you probably have not seen my scenes in Dragon Ball Z, and that's fine. I forgive you. But there a lot of screaming and just like I had about one episode warm up where I'm just sitting around talking like this. And then the bad guy shows up, and I have at least 1.5 full episodes of just charging, fighting. And one of his moves is he takes his arms apart and he basically has these nuclear rockets that come out and destroys half the planet. And I'm yelling the whole time, and it's freaking crazy. And I walked out of there and lit a cigarette. I'm like, that's.
Yeah.
I
That's
don't
interesting.
smoke anymore, but I'm illustrating how.
At the time, you were like,
Yeah, it's like
woo,
whatever.
bring it on.
Now
Well,
we don't endorse that for vocal health at all.
of course, yeah, I can
Not at
imagine. I
all.
can
Okay.
imagine. Um, and so rewinding a little bit, something that you had mentioned about writing to the flaps kind of thing, like in
Yes.
in the translation. So the writers, so would they essentially, so you're taking the original Japanese and you've got you've got the flaps and the lips going as they're going, and you're contextually changing the dialogue. So it's not a direct translation, but it's a translation where the syllables will maybe match with the movement of the mouth a little better, so that then when you're doing the English dubbing, because you have this, it was like there's a sentence that has 8 syllables in it or something like that, and so that would be like 8 mouth movements essentially, and so
Pretty
you've got
much. Get correct.
the writer has to go in and then say, okay, this is what they said. How do we say the same thing in 8 syllables so that an actor can come in and match this up? Is that
Pretty much. You've got the pretty much the gist of it. I just add for color commentary that not all
Yeah,
translations are the same,
of course.
um, because not all translators are the same. And the Japanese language versus the English language is
Oh,
a
yeah,
very complicated relationship.
yeah,
Um, so it's like we do the best with what we have, and we're always true to the true intent of the material. We're not changing anything. That's just like you were saying. If a line is saying he got in his car and I only have three flaps or four flaps, or the translation is really kind of stumbly, doesn't make a lot of sense. It's just kind of mostly English, and you can kind of dissect what they're trying to say. Um, but yeah, you pretty much got it. It's just always a process getting. That's why it's called adapting. And a lot of people online or whatever, they get it's not authentic. What it's like, you don't know either, bro. It's like
right,
we're getting the best translation we can and then adapting it. It's an adaptive work. It's not supposed to be one for one because it's
uh-huh,
impossible for it to be one for one. It's two
of course.
different languages entirely.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Otherwise, it'd be like just like you said, it would just be like bad dubbing where nothing matched,
yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah. Then I'm
it's
sure they'd have all kinds of things to say about that too.
right. Yeah, it's like pick your poison.
Right.
Which one do you want here?
Yeah, it would look awful. And what's even funnier is the Japanese don't really match the flaps that much. Like I was just yesterday in the studio previewing a line, and that the dialogue went all the way through that character, full face on camera, almost close up, and the flaps were like pop pop up, pause, pop up, pause, pop 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 pop. But the dialogue kept going and going and going, and
Right.
so
Have
we
you
every day.
have you kind of learned Japanese now after doing it this so many years to a certain extent?
No, is that I feel so much shame I haven't. I have been immersed in this language for 25 years.
Yeah.
And it's like I can recognize that I'm hearing Japanese versus like Chinese or Korean. I think that's kind of a cool skill, but that's it. I know about four Japanese words. Um, I'd love to learn it. It's really complicated, and my brain doesn't take the language as well. I failed Spanish, if you can imagine. That's awful. Another
Okay.
shame point in my life.
Yeah.
But thanks, Tony.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Well, there's so many people around the world who the way that they've learned English is by watching English language television in whatever country they're in, and it's subtitled or whatever it might be, and so that's how it's subtitled, dubbed, and whatever, and that's how they're learning.
Right. I
That's how
get it
that's
makes
how they're
total
learning.
sense.
Yeah,
Everything you're saying makes total sense.
yeah. Not
I
trying to
think
put you down. Well,
no, no, no.
you've only had 25 years to figure this out.
Right. I think honestly, just talking with you about it and always feeling just, God, I wish I could have. I will say my primary focus and probably why I haven't learned it is I'm paying attention to the English words and the emotional notes. Like I'm taking what I'm hearing, what I'm feeling via this language I don't understand and inserting that into my language. And as a deep actor, philosopher, that's what I'm leaning on as far as why I haven't learned the Japanese language, because I'm too focused on making the English sound like what they're saying.
That's good. That's good. I think our audience will buy that one.
Sure.
That's good. You're like, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's great. That's great. And so yeah, so you spent, a lot of time obviously in the ADR dubbing portion, moved into directing. What about writing, producing side of it? Kind of that portion of what you do as well.
I've done almost every job that I can do skill wise up there, not sound engineer, but we have a position called time coding. And what time coding is when is pre-dialogue, is when you get the video and you get the translation, and the
Hmm.
time coder's job is to basically just when I was doing it, I was working off a DVD running it frame by frame. And every
Wow.
time a character's mouth would open, you'd have to DVD back and insert that time code. And you do that for every character's line, any sound that another actor needs to recreate, that needs to be time coded into the script. So then once that's completed, it goes on over to the writer. The writer takes the translation and inserts all the dialogue. Basically, the time coder is building the screen direction like CT grunt, OM throw, CT fight react kind of thing, and the time code where that happens. And then The writer comes in and inserts the dialogue into that script body. And once that writing's complete, that's when I get the script in the booth. And that's when I cast who I need to cast for that certain episode or call back in the leads or whatever. Like I do my thing as far as casting. And then I send that to the producers, and then production coordinator sends out the emails for the actors. And then they show up and we make anime magic.
And so where?
I'm sorry, Tony. So I used to time code, and I've written a couple scripts, but I never really got into the writing aspect because I just moved into directing.
Sure. So where is the majority of this the animation produced, like the actual animating of it produced? Is it primarily still Japan? Is a lot of that? I know there's a big animation industry in Texas and in Dallas. North Texas has a huge animation industry now of animation, visual effects, and everything. So has anything transitioned where things are being made in the U.S., or is this all like it's still just made in Japan and kind of sent over and you know?
That's where we live. Like our content comes from Japan. So primarily, yes. As far as the work we're doing, all the stuff is coming from Japanese licensors. And then it comes over here and we put the English version of it out and stuff. I would love to be part of original animation, like the stuff that you were mentioning here and stuff. But as far as the ADR dub work we're doing, as far as I know, we're not collaborating. Like they haven't told me. Let me if that is happening.
Because then it's a
That'd
different
be
process,
awesome, though.
right? Because rather than doing a translation, it's the original language that it's in, and then
Right.
somebody else in Japan is translating it into Japanese or
Oh yeah.
other languages around the world.
Right.
Yeah. Are
Which
you?
they do.
Yeah. Do you do a Spanish language dub in Dallas as well? I would think with
We do have a Spanish dub, but it's not in Dallas. I'm trying to think. I don't want to lie to you. I'm not entirely sure where it is.
it's okay.
One of the things when we went Crunchyroll when we merged with Sony is because of the global reach
Yeah.
that we have now versus
Sure.
just North America. So we have Spanish dub, we have a Brazilian dub, um, we
No,
have all kinds of
it makes
dubs.
perfect sense. Yeah, it makes perfect.
Yeah.
That makes perfect sense. And so, because you are in Dallas, recording in Dallas and everything, are all of your actors then your voice actors Dallas based, or at least North Texas or nearby?
Primarily, I prefer local based actors just as a point of privilege myself, just because remote recording can get so bothersome sometimes. But we have the short answer is yes. There's varying factors like maybe an actor started here and then moved to Los Angeles or New York, and then all of a sudden there's a season two that shows up, but they're out of town. So we can satellite record them from wherever they are, kind of thing. But when it comes to getting a show off the ground, barring any other kind of any special needs or circumstances or licensor requests or whatever's happening, it's usually if it's me casting a show, I'm looking local first. Just that's the way we've always done it. Like when we
Yeah.
started Funimation,
Ah,
like
that's awesome, man. I love that, and as someone
agreed.
whose job has been when I was film commissioner in Florida and film commissioner in Dallas to get people working and to make and build an industry in an area. To me,
Hire
that is
local. It's the
yeah,
same thing as all like farmers market or whatever. And what frustrates me is when I was doing theater and film projects too, is that for some reason there's
mhm.
this stereotype
I know where you're
mindset with,
going.
yep,
Say it, brother.
that you have to live in LA to be a good actor, or you have
Uh-huh.
to be in New York to be good at theater. And the funny, hilarious BS part of it is that whoever you're hiring from LA or New York or wherever you think all the actors live, they're just people that moved there from places like Fort Worth or Dallas. It's
Yeah,
crazy. So I'm just like, I don't need to go out there to find people I know are here. I didn't tell you
right.
to move. It's not my
Yeah.
fault.
No,
So
I'm giving you a huge round of applause there because it's
thank
something
you.
that I've fought for many many years. When a production would be shooting, they'd be like, "Well,
Yeah,
we're gonna cast the lead out of L.A." and be like, "Why?"
stupid. They think it legitimizes their project for some reason. And it's like, save your money. Like spend that on other things.
Yeah,
Like
no,
hire local.
it's so insane. And look, and
Yeah.
I get the perspective of when you need a name talent, you've got to have X name to sell your project or whatever. 100% understand that. Like that's part of the business model. But to bring in just like random, 3-line actor from Los Angeles or something, it's like, why? What's the point? There's no
I would
point.
even push back on the big name and they have to come from LA thing.
Yeah.
Honestly. Yeah. I mean, even Texas wise, if you want to just open it up to Texas, there's a lot of other cities in Texas, like
Oh, yeah. No,
Austin or
absolutely.
whatever.
Yeah.
Like I mean, if, let's say we're talking a huge project or whatever, I don't know, but like when I was working live production or things like that, I worked with a couple productions that were that mentality as far as, well, we got this guy because they were in this and this, and they're in LA. I'm like, yeah, but who cares about this and this? Like, how much? What does that do into our budget if you got this guy from this C-level show?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, exactly.
it
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be exactly some like it's the whatever guest star on that's done a bunch of television, but
Hmm.
still nobody knows who they are. It's like it's not Brad Pitt that's,
Right.
selling the movie kind of
Right.
thing. It's just it is a weird mentality. I've never really quite understood that. And to be honest with you, it's the same. It can be the same thing with crew. So I had a project
Uh-huh.
right before I was leaving Florida at the end of 2022. I won't say the company, but it was a big commercial company that's based in St. Pete area, and they were going to do this whole series of big national commercials that they were going to shoot, and they were going to pay a production company based in Los Angeles to bring 60 people in from LA to work the project. It was going to be like over $200,000 in travel expenses to bring the crew in, and I
My
was like,
God.
there's crew here. Like you don't need to bring the grip from Los Angeles. Like,
Full Sail is in Florida. You
yeah,
can go to Full Sail and crew your whole project for half the price, probably.
yeah. They're and in the Tampa Bay area is there's a long history of commercial production. They do big national commercials. I mean, you go back to people working on you know why am I blanking on the name? Edward Scissorhands, 30
Yeah,
plus years ago. That shot here. The same crew is here that did Edward Scissorhands 30 years ago. They've been working for 30 years in the market. You don't need to go outside the area to find, good crew for your commercial that you're going to shoot. It's ridiculous. And so it's a weird thing that I don't know why people think that when and I get understanding to work with people that you know or that you like, but
yeah.
something to that extent is like bring your cinematographer and your director, great, but you don't need to bring everybody else. It doesn't make any sense.
Agreed. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. That's all ego. It's all ego, man. It's all ego.
Yeah.
Welcome to the business.
Yeah. Yeah. They're like, oh, we can save $200,000 on our budget. Like, yeah, so and so lives down the road. He's a great sound guy. He'll be fine for you.
Right.
You don't have to worry about it. It's not a big deal.
Uh,
But what do you have coming up next? Like, what are some of the things that you're excited about that you're working on coming up?
oh well, I, hmm, I'm trying to think of what I can talk about.
What you're allowed to talk about.
I have a couple projects coming in um, that are really really good shows. They're shows that I call anime for people who don't watch anime. If you
Okay.
want to expound on that, because that's basically me when I got
Yeah.
into this work.
Yeah.
And when we do conventions and stuff like that, um, every convention I go to, I always run into like a fan and their parents or their dad or their sister or whatever. Usually it's a dad that is just really supportive of their kid and just kind of watches the anime with them or they get into it with them. And I'm like, bro, I got you. Like I give them shows that this is an anime you can like that I know you'll like because there's so much out there. It's really hard to dig through what you would like. Um, I'm getting to your question for sure. But
Okay. That's
two of
okay.
these shows, two of these shows are that anime for people who don't like anime. One's called Fire Force, and one's I just mentioned I'm in that one. And one's called Windbreaker. Um, I've got a thing I can't say on a really big show coming
Cool.
in. It's the biggest show we have that's out there. There might be a hat on my shelf about it. um, but so watch for that, I guess.
Yeah. Where you know what? Something that we never, should have covered at the beginning when we started chatting is how would you define anime for somebody that may be listening to this that everybody knows the term anime and they know it's
Interesting.
animation that comes from Japan. Is it that simple? Is anime just animation that comes from Japan, or how would you define what it is?
It's that is a great question, Tony. You're gonna have to give me some grace in processing it. because I
Yeah.
love it and I've never had to answer it, and I'm probably going to take a long time doing it.
No,
But
I want to hear a long answer on what you think it is then.
I often like feel myself feeling your question when I'm watching it. It's like the difference in anime is I would say it's a lot more adult themes.
Hmm.
Um, it's just the Japanese culture is different in some ways, and that kind of comes through in their anime. Um, how is it different? It's
Because like so someone maybe is like, oh, I love Pixar and I love
yeah,
Disney animation, Wreck-It Ralph, and these kinds of
uh,
films, and those are family friendly, right? And there are other more adult things that are out there. But what makes something anime, like even if you think back many years ago, animation that I loved as a kid that I still really like is Johnny Quest. Remember Johnny Quest, of course. Like Johnny Quest, amazing, but that wasn't anime. That's
no,
not anime, but it was a kind of adult oriented animation at the time.
for sure. I
In
think
the
maybe it's like bourbon. It's anime if it comes from Japan, or like bourbon if it's whiskey is bourbon if it comes from America and aged or whatever. But
Right.
I would say the themes there's an anime for everything. Like it's just God, my mind's exploding with the amount of examples. But if you are into a genre, there's at least 80 animes for it. So what makes anime different is God, that's such a tough question, but a good one.
Well, there's a visual style to it too, right? Like when
There's
you see.
absolutely a visual style, and it's a lot more kinetic
Mhm.
um, than just your 2D animation. Like a lot of animes are all over the place. They love the female form for sure.
Yeah.
Um, so
Very
there's
diplomatic.
that.
That's
Yeah,
good. Yeah, I like that.
but not all of them. Like they're not
Yeah.
all like that.
Yeah.
So what makes anime different? Just that it's a different. I mean, it's cool that it's an art form. I guess let me try to answer it with a show that I worked on called
Okay.
Golden Kamuy. To me, I would say what makes anime different is working on a show like Golden Kamuy, where it is an animated show. You could call it a cartoon if you want, but it's a show about it's a historical fiction based in turn of the century Japan in Hokkaido, North Japan. And when it came out, it was getting, and it still is, a lot of praise and recognition because it's it's a story about a veteran from the Russo-Japanese War who makes a promise to his now dead best friend to get some money to take back to his blind wife. And in order to do that, he comes across a legend of a gold stash from the Ainu indigenous people of Hokkaido. He runs into a small girl named Ashirpa who turns into his guide in finding this gold. And along the way, they run into various prison. I mean, it's a really deep story about, and the map is tattooed on these prisoners' backs, and they have to find them and cut their skins off so they can put the map together. And there's 4 different factions of political conspiracy, and these guys want the gold. And it's an amazing story. We're about to start another season of it, hopefully this year. But I bring that up because it taught me things about Japan I never knew. Like, and it's gotten because of that. It's like the Ainu people, they have a similar indigenous people situation like we did here, and they kind of treated them the same way as far as taking their land or all that. I mean, the whole history of Japan, I don't want to ever claim that I'm anywhere knowledgeable about. I just know the show and that aspect of it. But it's like this: the language, the Ainu language, was considered a dead language because there's no written record of it. It was all oral tradition passed down. This show is full of Ainu, like Ainu people, Ainu names, Ainu characters, Ainu legends, Ainu cultural practices, Ainu cooking. It's a tour of the Ainu heritage wrapped up in this historical adventure, and it's really fascinating to the point to where we had to hire a language consultant, and they basically like when I got the show about 7 years ago, I was told there were 15 people in the world that knew how to speak Ainu. And I like to say, because we got that show, there's at least 20 people now that can speak Ainu because we have one of my stars in the show, Monica, speaks it really well. She doesn't speak it, but we hired a language consult that came in and actually taught herself to speak Ainu off of the spread what was available online. There was like a YouTube video of an old Ainu woman speaking Ainu and it kind of being transcribed underneath and just talking about the language and what different words are. And we also found a spreadsheet from like Oxford University or something that had the English word, the Japanese word, and the Ainu word. And all. And what made it tricky was is that the Japanese are speaking Ainu in the show, but Ainu doesn't sound just like Japanese. They use their vowels different in some places. So learning, like we couldn't just listen to the Japanese and repeat what they were doing. We had to learn how the real Ainu, as much as we could, learn how to really speak Ainu with the language
So,
consult.
so this is interesting. So you had to take, so it was Japanese and Ainu in the original Japanese version that is sent to you, and then you are translating the Japanese into English, but you're leaving the Ainu in Ainu, but you have to
Exactly.
do it now with American English speakers doing the Ainu so that it matches the
Yep.
new,
It's not easy, is it, everybody?
So for those people that want to be a voice actor, what's your phone number? They can just give you a
Right.
call and
It's I will credit the recording process. I could spend another hour talking to you about the recording process of that kind of situation because what happens was let's say Tony is coming in to speak the part I'm going to cast you as an Ainu native fishing whatever, but all of your lines are in Ainu. So that means you're going to get the casting email, and hopefully, if we're doing it right, you're going to get dialogue tracks, scratch tracks of the um, language consult saying those lines in Ainu, and your job is to really rehearse that. So by the time you get to the booth, we can act in a form. There's nothing harder than not speaking Ainu, or it happens in
yeah,
Russian a lot too. Any
yeah,
foreign language, getting that right, directing it home into a believable state. I mean, and we're all doing it real time. It's listen to it, say it, check it. Does it fit? Okay, this need is met. This need is met. This need is met. Does it sound believable? Okay.
yeah,
Move next line. Like you
because
get double the time for it. It's like a normal part that would usually last an hour, you're getting 3 just because
yeah,
the process is
you're
so
not
much
just you're
slower.
not just saying the words. You have to still get the emotion across of what the
Uh,
character is saying. It's not like it's just translated and you're just reading. You're reading it. Like
no.
you're
Yeah,
still, yeah. It's like I have no idea what words I'm saying here, but I have to portray this emotion with this word that I'm speaking.
exactly. And that's where the little tricks I was mentioning before come in real handy. One of the other, I call it's almost like the Buddy Hackett School of Voice Acting, but the quickest keys to the kingdom is to look at what your character's eyebrows are doing.
Uh,
Like that will tell you in one word where you need to baseline your emotional intent with is whatever visual they're giving you, what their eyebrows are doing. That's your first clue. And then we can
yeah.
just go from there.
So
So there's a little,
when you meet random people who don't know what you do, and they say, the inevitable, I've grown to like when people ask me the question, so what do you do? And I'm like, oh,
here we go.
I can't just, it's not just, you can't just say I'm a
Yeah,
doctor, a lawyer, a whatever, a gas station attendant. Like there's a whole, like, it's
it's
like
a whole thing.
an
Yeah.
explanation. It's an explanation. It's not just here's what it is, but now there's an explanation. Especially when I was film commissioner, I'd be like, I'm a film commissioner. I'm the film commissioner for Dallas. Nobody knows
Mhm.
what that is, and so you have to
Yeah.
explain what it is. Or now the same thing with what I do with film fest, blah blah blah, whatever else. What do you say to people? And so it's like, oh, Jeremy, what do you do for a living?
I kind of cheat because saying I'm a voice actor is a quicker, well, it used to be a quicker explanation than saying I'm a voice director and all that entails. And there's pitfalls that come with both. If I say I'm a voice actor, there's one of two immediate responses. Oh, that's cool. What have I heard you in? Or that's awesome. How do I get into that?
Yeah, yeah.
If it's
How do I get into that?
if
Yeah,
it's or both. Um, if it's oh, that's cool. What have you been in? And lucky again that the first voiceover part I ever did was Dragon Ball Z. I have not
yeah.
met anybody that doesn't know what Dragon Ball Z is
Right.
now.
You can just say that and you're good.
Yeah, so they basically get it, and then it kind of just goes from there. If I
Do
tell them
people?
I'm a voice director, I end up having to explain
Yeah.
a lot or whatever. So the voice actor is usually the quicker cut to the chase. And then if they're still interested after a little bit, then we're talking about voice directing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and then it's like, how many people do their best Mel Blanc and just start giving you,
Right.
they just start giving you their voices. All right,
Yeah.
I got
Yeah. Which
25
time you
characters
got? Right.
queued up here. Here we go. Here we go. I'm going to start with all my Family Guy impressions, and then we'll
Right.
work on Work out
Let
to
me
the
ask
rest of
you,
them.
Tony. I was just talking to this with a couple colleagues. The funny thing is that we bitch about getting our butts whipped about. I want to be a voice actor. I want to be a voice actor. And then the funny thing is, it's like I need voice actors all the time. I just
Really?
can't hire anyone. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Do
Yeah.
you run into that as well? It's like there is a need to recruit, um, but it can't just be any schmo that just wants to do it. It's a conundrum that we
Yeah.
deal with on a
Well,
constant basis.
and I get a lot of things. So I do get a lot of people who want to be voice actors who ask me, how do I do this? Like, what do I do? And that's kind of like I'm like, well, do you have agency representation? You got a local talent agent for wherever you live? Because, they're going to
Well, I can
do,
answer that for you if you want some tips on it. It's like you don't necessarily need an agent. An agent helps, but I have never had an agent in my 25
yeah,
year career.
yeah.
The base level, baseline. I want to be a voice actor. Take an acting class. You don't need a degree in acting. You don't need to take thousands and thousands of dollars. You know what I do when I'm at a convention and people ask me that? I say, take an acting class at your community college. Immerse yourself in a community that wants to do the same thing. Um, I always, always, always endorse the local community colleges. Um, they have most,
Tell people to do theater.
yeah, I would even like some people don't want to do theater, but and like you don't have to be a theater actor. It's the goal is delivering the line believably. That can be an acting class, that can be an improv class, that could whatever it is, you just have to learn to process that and deliver it. And as a director, I don't care what you do, uh, as long as you do it, because nobody's got time to teach you how to do it by the time you get in my booth. By the time you get in my booth, you need to know certain things so we can do real work instead of I'm just telling you how beeps work, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's yeah,
but
it's interesting because people it's generally, I want to be an actor or I'm starting out acting or my son or daughter wants to be an actor and so then it's like, well, how much theater have you done? How much training are you doing? Are you doing local, acting classes, whatever it might be. There's that kind of stuff. And then it's well, I have this amazingly, deep and robust voice, and people tell me that I should do,
yes, yeah, I should be in radio or something. Yeah, all that's great. All that's great. There's a need for that. But like I said, where the doors are is in the community. I'm kind of on the outside looking in to a lot of, but since I have been doing this, especially pre-COVID and then through, and then now, there's a lot of like voice actor meetup groups. There's a
Oh,
lot of similar
makes sense.
people that
Makes
just
sense.
hang out. And that is, I have seen be very effective for these groups of people to where, let's say, two of those people in that group are at Crunchy working or wherever doing the work. And as long as everybody's cool and supportive, it's a really positive experience because you're not only around the same people, learning the same things, but you're supporting each other. You're getting leads on different areas of the job. Like I didn't know this area had this kind of need. I didn't know anime was in Dallas, Texas until I
Right.
ran into my spare acquaintance that I really didn't like, but he told me about Dragon Ball Z, and there I'm talking to you. So
Well,
it's
and
just,
where do you find your voice actors? Because you just said you need and you're always looking for something different, right? So
yeah, that's
where do you find it?
it used to be a lot easier because the voice actor roles were so. I could, if you have time, I can tell you a quick mass audition story that kind of paints this picture. Before, it was way more of a need, and then just recruiting, basically theater, like friends of friends, actors. This actor knew this guy, and they came in an audition. They sounded great. Great, you have a part. We used to do a lot more public auditions, but the time I ran an entire week of public auditions at Funimation one week where I was there 10 to 6 and Monday through Friday. And every day that week I did at least 200 auditions a day, audition after audition after audition. And it's just so time consuming. And we did hire actors out of that. But these days now with home setups and things like that, quick story, during COVID, I didn't want to send out a public audition or a mass audition for returns. Uh, but I was told I should and I needed to. So I said, okay. My turnaround was 72 hours. The
Wow.
audition turnaround, I started recording a brand new show in 3 days. That's why I didn't want to send out all these auditions to everywhere. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Sure.
It's like, well, just give it a 48-hour turnaround, see what you get. I'm like, okay, cool. Sunday night, the audition goes out to LA, New York, and here. Um, I'm going through auditions Wednesday afternoon, knowing we have a Thursday recording. Like we're starting Thursday morning. I listen, and I think it was either 2,800 auditions back in 48
Wow.
hours, maybe more. And
No way to go through all those. There's
I
no way to
listened
go
to
through.
everyone.
Did you
I didn't
really?
listen
Wow.
to the whole thing.
Of
It's
course,
like
yeah.
1,000, not what I need. 1,000, not what I need.
Yeah.
1,000, not what I need. But the key is not to discourage actors because that's just the nature of like you tell me how I'm supposed to process that many auditions
Yeah.
on that kind
Yeah.
of turnaround. But the cool thing I think is like a lot of actors get discouraged and stuff. But like I found two actors out of those auditions that I put in parts that weren't even for those auditions. Then I personally work that way a lot just because I rob Peter to pay Paul. I'm casting shows all the time. So I'm robbing Peter to pay Paul from this audition base versus that audition or this show. These people were really good. I'm just going to go steal all that and kind of
Yeah.
put it all together.
What is a voice audition like? Like what does somebody send in for a voice audition?
It's usually based on a side. Like you're going to get,
Okay. So just like a regular audition, except they're sending video as well with it, or is
no,
it
you
strictly
just get a little
audio?
picture of the image. You get an image of the character and a little write up, like, and then instructions like, we're looking for this age range, male this or gender this or whatever. And then there's usually a page of dialogue with some screen instruction or in the fifth column or whatever. And you get that, you jump in or I would just do it here, just record it
Yeah.
and send it off.
Have you ever done or would you be interested in doing like a workshop in Dallas for voice actors? Because it's such an interesting thing that people just don't know enough about. Like there are a
I
lot of
agree.
good actors in Dallas, and so some of these actors who are only thinking commercial film and television might not be thinking, hey, animation
I
could be.
I totally agree. And even in our own community, and this business has been here for 30 years, making a ton of money and making a lot of actors money.
Yeah.
And we still, I feel, get pushback from agents or local production. Yeah, as far as not legitimate or oh, that's that. And I'm like, until they come knocking on our door for work.
Yeah.
But I love that part.
Yeah.
But I would actually love to because, like I said earlier, there's no school for this and there's no class for this. And there's a lot of actual workshops that do pop up that I wouldn't endorse.
Yeah, of course.
So
Maybe this is something cool we could do at Southside Studios. We literally have these brand new remodeled sound stages in Dallas now. Whether it's just big open empty space, we could do anything we want. Like it could be
that would be
something.
amazing, Tony. We should brainstorm and spitball this because that's something
Yeah.
I've actually it's something I've been trying to think of to do myself because I see a lot of these things starting to happen and I have ethical questions about it. It's like I'm trying to balance. I'm in a position to hire these people and I'm not going to do a pay to play situation
Of
and I
course.
want to be ethical about it, but I also there's a need to teach the community how to do this work in order to get better
Yeah.
work out of the community.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like,
So
where does that land?
yeah. So while I was the year and 8 months I was film commissioner, we did 15 or 16 free workshops that we would just put on these free workshops, did them at Texas Theater. And we would record the workshop then as a podcast episode too, and those became podcast episodes for the Dallas Film Podcast. And it was just basically an opportunity. People come in, they sit in the room, and we would do the little workshop, whatever, and it was something that we hosted and took care of, and we could easily do that at Southside. I know Dallas Film Commission would help promote it, and we could put it out there to people in Dallas. And it's like, hey, this is a free workshop, informational, educational only.
Mhm.
Um,
No
and
promises made.
Yep, exactly, exactly. But you with your background in your role as the person who would be, doing the workshop, I think we would get a good number of Dallas-based actors that would show up that could then take that information on, how to do this basically, and then in the future we'd have that list of people, and if you were doing an audition or whatever, it'd be easy to give that list of emails to you and say, here's the audition, whatever it is. I mean, there's a process could be figured out, but I think the education component, people just learning what it is, how it works, and how we would approach would be beneficial.
I agree. I think that has a lot of legs, and that's definitely something I'm willing to throw around and talk to. It's funny you brought that up because it's something I've been thinking about a lot. I get asked all the time at cons about doing private lessons or this or that. And it's just something I never dove into because I like my time, but
Yeah. Yeah.
there's
No,
also a need,
yeah, think
so
about it and think what it would look like, right? If this is something that's whatever, a 90-minute workshop, what would a 90-minute workshop be for you? How would you want to do it? I would moderate it with you and kind of, do the process. We could do it at our new LED wall will be up in stage 2 at Southside at the beginning of April. We could always do it in that room, have the chairs set up. We could be in front of the LED wall if we wanted to show any video or anything. It could be kind
it
of
would
cool.
have, yeah, it would have to just be determined how much of an intensive you wanted. If like it could be just like a lecture Q&A kind of thing. If you wanted to get actually nuts and bolts of recording and how the actual recording dialogue voice acting works, you'd probably need more like a booth setup with an ADR like a sound engineer that could run it. And then like have an actor come in and do a scene and then give feedback, that kind of thing, with an audience or whoever's at the workshop. They kind of take turns doing it. It would definitely need. I mean, a lot of it is, some of it would need to be instruction. Some of it would probably need to be hands-on for sure. I'll tell you what, a lot of it would be just surviving as an actor. Like I meet so many people that just get discouraged, or the opposite. They're super. I mean, there's a professionalism that comes along with the lifestyle, and
Mhm.
it just takes a certain heart in you to do it. And um, it's not the easiest choice to make for your life. So you got to be prepared for that. And then on top of just acting professionally, image discipline online,
Yeah.
all of these things affect your
Yeah.
brand. You're a brand. I don't care if you're a voice actor, especially if you're a voice actor. For some reason, it gets really crazy with voice act. I don't know. I stay out of the actor sphere
Like
as
no one
much as
can see my face.
possible.
I can do anything I want on
Right,
Instagram.
exactly. But it's like you could learn to, image discipline. You are a brand. You're a product. The product is you. You're just making money with yourself. And I mean, it's just amazing how many people don't get that.
Yeah,
It's
that's awesome.
crazy.
Well, think about it. Let's put something together. I think this could be something really cool. You think about, what the first one of these we would do would be, like how in depth you would want it to be. If it'd be more, kind of baseline, or if you really want to get into like giving some very specific examples without going full, putting people in a booth kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm totally down for that. We could totally work that out and discuss that.
Awesome.
That'd be cool.
Well, good. Well, that's, I think, the perfect
I'm
spot.
I'm excited because I've been thinking about that for a while. I just didn't have a space. But if you have Southsides, I mean, if you have a legit space, I mean, that's
Yeah,
half the battle right there. That's
absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
easy. Piece of cake. We'll make it happen. So
That
good.
yeah.
All
Reconnect
right.
with me offline for sure.
That sounds great. That sounds great. Well, good. Well, I think that's the perfect spot to end today's episode.
Watch
Then
for Tony's voice acting workshop, guys. It's
it's
coming on
coming.
hot.
It's
Yeah.
coming soon. It's coming soon. I'm gonna be in Jeremy's next show
Right.
as uh here as the chef.
Soldier A. Exactly.
That's
Exactly.
it. Yeah, that's all I need. That's all I need.
That could be a
Well,
workshop right there. I know you're wrapping up right now. There's so many things we can get into. It's called Bits and Walla. And if you're coming in new, that's where you're going to start. It's group sound, it's group note reactions and noises and bit parts like Soldier A. And that's where all new actors start. Bits and Walla. You could do a workshop on that. That'd be a great workshop. Bits and
okay.
Walla. Yeah.
Let's do it. I think this is awesome. Yeah, we'll put this together. Well, good. Well, Jeremy, thank you for joining us on the Dallas Film Podcast, brought to you by Southside Studios Dallas.
Thank you.
We look forward to the workshop coming up, and I hope everybody enjoyed the episode.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm excited.
Thanks.